Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rich, Simple Human. I'm Lindsey Frances, significant psychologist and clinical sophrologist, and as you know, I talk about all things being rich and simple human. Today, I've got a very fine specimen of being rich and simple. It's Sam Greene. Sam, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. And for those of you that don't know Sam already, Sam is the founder and CEO of F+nction Nutrition. He's going to tell you more about it, but he's also got a very, very interesting background. Sam, I'm delighted that you're here. Thank you so much. Before we carry on, you know that I've got some quick fire questions for you. And if you don't mind, please, I'm going to jump straight in. If there's anything you'd like to add to your intro, please do. But are you ready?
Hey, Lindsay. Yeah, great to be here, and thanks for having me on. Absolutely. Let's dive right into your rapid fire questions and take it forward.
And please stay listening because we're going to do a rapid fire question section and then we're going to talk about all things sleep and recovery. Sam and I are sleep addicts. It's basically all we talk about in our spare time, and we talk to everybody else about it because if you're not sleeping properly, you will be dead. So listen in, and we're going to share our own journey with you as well. Sam, the first question I have for you is being versus doing. And you know I talk about being a human being and not a human doing. What practices have you used over the last few years to slow down, pay attention, and live with real presence?
Great question. I think for me, it's exactly the same as reading 5,000 books and still having the similar issues in your life, whether that is in relationships, in finances, in your personal life, and health. So about about 2.5 years ago, about 3 years ago, I actually stopped reading new books because I had read about 3,500 books. And I started rereading and re-listening to the books that I read. And I started to take like micro things from each and every single book that I was reading. James Clear's Atomic Habits is a great example where he says that it's all about your systems and you want to improve 1% every day over a course of like a year instead of trying to improve 100% like the following day because that's not sustainable. It's not going to be consistent and you're going to fall to your systems. So what systems have I implemented? I do have a non-negotiable list. I write every day, and my non-negotiable list, I have a number of things which I do not move away from, regardless of what time it is. Do again, sleep is a non-negotiable. So I wouldn't ever go into a phase where I am sacrificing my sleep. I think another thing I have really paid massive attention to is developing a very strong muscle to say no to most things. I think when you're super young, like in your teens or in your early 20s, it's a great idea to say yes to most things because you're trying to network, you're trying to um, expand your network, and also trying to figure yourself out. But for me, I'm 37 right now, and for me, it's like, about 2, 3 years ago, I started saying no to a lot of things, and that actually happened as a result of some of the yeses that I was saying to good friends, sometimes to events. Every time I would finish, I wouldn't actually feel good at all. So it's what are you allocating your energy to is a good question to ask yourself. That's the question I ask myself. So and is that reciprocal to what your outcome is? So if your outcome is good health, aesthetic appeal, longevity, wellness, financial structure, which leads to financial freedom, not abundance, then you're able to then reverse engineer, okay, what do I need to do in order to hit those goals? Now, I do sound, sometimes I am aware of the fact that I can sound a bit too antisocial because I'm an introvert by nature, so all of this doesn't apply to everyone. But even if you're an extrovert and you get a lot of energy from people outside of your own space, just try to monitor that and try to manage your relationships and expectations from you and then people around you.
Absolutely brilliant answer. Energy lost through people is the worst thing that hits the data. And you know, I'm a data geek, so everyone's wearing a whoop if they're working with me. And yeah, you go out or you hang out with people, you're going to lose some energy, which is fine. Is it worth it? Well done, Sam, saying no. The yes no muscle is very important. It's a big sophrology exercise. We do it a lot. It's a somatic practice. Couldn't recommend it more highly. Next question: purpose over profit. In a world totally obsessed with growth and returns, how do you keep purpose at the heart of the profitability of what you're doing?
If you zoom out and you look at, say, a 3-year plan, you are going to focus more on purpose, because what you will realize is if your purpose is focused outward to people, you are going to inevitably hit profits. So people who are focused, hyper focused on profits, they tend to be looking at a very immediate gain, immediate return. And people who tend to focus on purpose are more in the camp of suffering and being able to benefit from delayed gratification. So I think that for me, look, I want financial freedom just like anybody else, and I love cars. As a little 1-year-old, 2-year-old, I was fascinated with fast cars. So it's got nothing to do with like trying to impress, like, and peacocking and stuff like that. It's nothing for me in that respect. And I like nice things. I like to eat quality foods, and they're all expensive and everything else. But at the same time, I think you have to build a muscle of just doing what's painful, doing what's not like always fun, to really build something with purpose. And then as a byproduct of that, you end up getting loads of money because you're building something that is valuable to others, and take it forward. So yeah.
Serving others, it's so important, but of course we do need to serve ourselves first, and I think you and I have both fallen victim to perhaps not serving ourselves as a priority in earlier years, and we've got a story about that for later on in the show. I do a lot of work, Sam, on legacy, and especially legacy beyond wealth. People wondering, well, it's great, I've got some money, I just need more money, and of course that's not really the way the world works. Living legacy vision. If I asked you to imagine your future family were gathered in a warm, purposeful space some years from now, what story or value would you want them to carry forwards after you leave planet Earth?
There is a great there's great writing done by a writer. I can't remember his name, but it's basically summarizes something called a warrior code. And I live my life by that. I listen to it every morning. It's like my morning mantra. And I rephrased it to reflect my own life and my own values and stuff like that. And it summarizes like one of the parts of that morning mantra is a warrior is driven by one thing and one thing only, and that's love. Love of family, love of pride, love of what's good, and also love for the belief in you, the faith that what's inside you that you share with your loved ones cannot die. And it will pass from one person to another to another. Now, what do I want that to look like? For if I had to take example of what I want my son, for example, who is 5 years old right now, I would want him to have a very good introspection built into him. So right now he's absolutely phenomenal. His observation skills are phenomenal. I want him to enhance that more through me in my life, like scaling from where I was when I was born till now. It's one thing has been hugely important to me, that's adaptation skills, because I do believe that that's what puts us at the top of the food chain, the apex predators on the planet, which is adaptation skills. So I think that you also have to be a kind person. I think it's more important to be nice rather than being important, because it's nice to be important sometimes. So I think that kind and leading with love for. I think for boys and girls, especially nowadays, if I'm getting a bit more granular to it with our currently where our society is, I had this conversation with someone yesterday. I was on a table dinner, and this lady was talking to me about like, she's teaching her son about like really getting in touch with his feelings and stuff like that, and really truly be connected with your emotions. And I said to her that, look, I understand that's a great approach, and I appreciate it because we have come from a generation of a lot of guys who didn't speak and they imploded, which will reflect somewhat to why a lot of men live not as long as females. Naturally, there are some biological factors to play in that, which is like you know, because of the biological differences of the fat retention within our intramuscular structure and so on and so forth. But mostly stress completely compromises your immune system. And then because you implode instead of talking to someone, that has negatively impacted a lot of people in the generation before us. What I'm seeing now with the Gen Z and millennials and XLs, is it Gen Z? Sorry, millennial and Gen Z, right? Is that the right term? What I'm seeing with the new generation now is they are a bit too worried about how they feel. So I think yeah, and that's having again like now it's gone too far left. So I think what we need to do as parents, if kids are lucky enough to have two parents, then you have the nurturing and the loving and the kisses and the hugs from the mother, and you have the hard working ethic and doing what's right, and developing a callus is also very crucial in this world, because when kids are so protected, what you're seeing is that generation which is insanely protected, especially in the circles where you have high net worth individuals. They have the financial resources and means to create those safety nets for their children. They are a bit too protected, and we both know, as when you grow up, the world isn't all roses and sunshine.
No, it's not. I love that, Sam, how to create a callus, because I sometimes wonder if my children have swallowed some sort of psychology textbook when they're repeating things they've heard to me on TikTok about I'm body shaming or whatever, but whatever accusation they're making, which would never be my intention. But yes, I absolutely agree. We do need to pull it back and be realistic. It's a very fine line between sharing our emotions and then knowing what to do with them. And I also am very interested about what you said about this sort of emotional regulation, being in community, being with other people, because without that, in fact, you and I would never have met. You and I met through Remedy Health, which is an amazing network run by Andrea Green, and we get connected with other people in the space that we're in because we're passionate about healthcare, not sick care, but healthcare. And that has just been so important to me. So yeah, there we go. Shout out to Remedy Health and Andrea and the team, because they're doing amazing work. Next question, Sam, the narrow gate. Now, you've already talked about this. The gate to feeling significant and satisfied is very narrow. And I often say to my clients, to get through the narrow gate, you need to be moving quite slowly, but you also need to know where you're going, or you're just going to run into the fence rather than going through the gate. Can I ask you, how do you personally steward your own resources to make sure that it becomes wisdom and value and purpose moving forwards?
It is a daily practice. And when you're talking about a purpose, when you're talking about the surety, when you're talking about significance, these are biologically programmed in us. So if you look at the six most common, the most powerful human emotional needs are what? It's a certainty, uncertainty, significance, growth, sharing, and love, right? And if you ever have any doubt on trying to figure out someone's behavior, or it just doesn't make any sense to you, always revert back to these six and you will find a reason. If you're trying to figure out why is this kid um, going up and down in his Lamborghini 18 times in Mayfair on the same road where it's 20 miles an hour and you can't really drive the car because it's like a trapped animal, these are powerful cars. Why are they doing that? It's significance. Why do people choose expensive designer brands? Why? It's significance. Why do you say yes to a date? Why do you say yes to marriage or having kids or going out with someone? Is certainty, is surety. And then the second one is uncertainty, and then you have the growth, loving, and sharing. But so for me personally, it's a daily practice to recognize any of my actions. Why am I looking to take those actions, or what is the impulse? Because the impulse is always there, it's biological, it's the evolutionary impulse, right? So you will always have an impulse. I often talk to my partner about this, that I'm not the person who never has an impulse to do anything like which is perhaps not fit for a good relationship framework in a monogamous terms, my recognition of the impulse is so defined that if I get an impulse, I catch it. It's called, obviously, this is also called metacognition, thinking about what you're thinking about. There's a great book about this, Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication. Poorly named but phenomenal book, and it kind of like redefines meditation for you as well, because when you're meditating it doesn't require you to sit on a sofa, put a robe on, and like light some candles and stuff like that. It's taking moments within your day to practice trying to get optics on what you're thinking about, and is that really true? So, and because again, biologically we're designed to, if we are on top of a mountaintop, there are two mountains in front of us. One is burning, the other one is green with flowers. Which one is going to pull our attention? The burning one. So we are biologically programmed to have negative thoughts. And this is a big problem, because about 80% of our thoughts, and we have about 65 to 70,000 thoughts a day as adults. Joe Dispenza talks about this because he's done so many brain scans. You have 85 to 90% of those are subconscious thoughts. So you have no idea what is actually what you're thinking about. But the precursor of that is going to be your proximity, what you're listening to, who you're talking to, the people you're spending time with, who you're getting a text from, message from, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your friends, and everything. And I often say this to people who actually are not happy with any results they're producing in their life. That what's the is it your behaviors? No, it plays a part. It's not your behaviors. Is it your actions? No, it's not your actions that play a part. What is it your thoughts, you say? No, it's not even your thoughts. It plays a part. It's your proximity. So the chart of this would be your proximity would trigger your thoughts. It will contribute to your thoughts. Your thoughts will trigger your behaviors. Your behaviors will trigger your actions, and your actions will trigger the results that you get in your life. And that's a perpetual loop why people are unable to change their life, because they don't monitor their proximity.
I don't think people are even thinking about it, Sam. And if anybody is more interested, please go and have a look at Freud's iceberg of consciousness, which is one of the foundations of my own program, and start thinking about, can you actually think about what you're thinking about, and where is your mind? Sam, I find so many clients are hanging out in the past, worrying about what's happened, or they're projecting some sort of weird fear into the future, which is not even true. And you're absolutely right. We're coded to keep our eye on the burning mountain, not on the flower mountain. And what we need to do is actually keep our minds on today. Which brings me neatly into my final question for you about your spiritual compass. Can I ask you, where are you right now in your spiritual life? You've talked about being 37. I'm nearly 50. It's been a whole journey. And how does that guide your decisions, your relationships, and your vision for the future?
Spiritually, I've wrestled with this question and the whole God question for a really long time. And I have no doubt that there's a creator, because you can actually run math on this for anyone who is actually interested. So there's a fantastic book called Solve for Happy, written by Mo Goddard.
Brilliant book.
And yeah, he's a fantastic book. And as I'm not sure if you remember, but there's a God equation in there where he mathematically breaks down the probability of a grand designer, creator. So you have the three options. You have evolution, which cannot be denied because everything has evolved. So is this, these cameras and the mic and the podcast and our clothing, everything. So that makes perfect sense. But the other two options left is, one is randomness, that everything was just randomly created, or the third one is grand designer. So any questions I had were, I was going through a very difficult time when I read that book, and it really helped me because I started connecting with just looking up at the sky and asking the questions. And miracles started to happen. So for me, it's like, I think miracles are only miracles because we believe that it's impossible until they happen, until you see it, until you feel it, until you experience it. So for me personally, where am I in that journey? So I don't have a religious belief. So I don't subscribe to a religion. I understand people who do, and I respect why they do, and also why religious structures are so critical and were needed when they were structured and so on. And anyone who's practicing right now, I completely understand why that is. For me personally, it's a direct line upstairs with the sky, and I'm able to have a conversation, whether that's grateful for daily small micro things to bigger things like my son and his health and everything else, to deeper questions which I'm able to ask, which I don't have answers to, and I'm able to get those responses from within me, which I think is a way of upstairs showing me, what the path is. So I do believe in a grand designer, the creator. I don't fully understand it, but that's where I am in my spiritual journey, and my viewpoint of this whole game that we're playing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sam, because you've already told me that your daily meditation is a non-negotiable, as is mine. Prayer and meditation is fundamental to my well-being, my recovery, and my sense of purpose. And I totally agree with you in the concept of a creator, a higher power, and having a direct line into that communication channel. It's something that I think when you do start meditating and you're still enough, you begin to cultivate or you become aware of. And of course, you just want more and more. I could, of course, now make this entire podcast about that subject because I could talk about it for ages, and I'll then throw in a bit of Jesus as well. But I won't, because that's not what we're going to talk about next. I'm going to now ask you about the importance of recovery, purpose, and of course, sleep. And the reason I'm so keen to talk to you, as well as being an all-round fab person and in the same community as me, is that I have been trialing the product, which has now been launched for 3 weeks only. Is that right, Sam?
That's
Here
right.
I
Yeah.
am with my very own sample of the Function product. I have been using this to enhance my sleep. Now, let me tell you, at nearly 50, that's a whole other conversation about what goes on in the night or the dark hours. I've sent you my Whoop scores. You know that my HRV jumped about 20, was it 30 points? It was insane on the first night. And of course, then your body adapts a little bit. But the product works. I feel great. And I'm going to recommend to anybody listening that you use the code we're going to put in the link below to get your own discount. It's amazing. Recovery is so important, but it's not just about having the right product. It's also about the right mindset. Sam, can you tell us a little bit about your recovery protocols and why sleep is so important, especially as we get older like me, and we're talking about cognitive decline, and also for entrepreneurs and founders like you who need to be on your A game a lot of the time?
Yeah, so recovery is super crucial for three different factors. I think number one is if you're an entrepreneur, even if you're in a position where you are in a corporate job, you are a mother looking after kids. That's a 24-hour job, let alone full-time job. So it's very taxing, and we need to recover in order to show up the next day in the optimal shape, in order to not only deal with it, not only just survive, but how do you actually perform your best? You want to be with your kids, you want to be the best mom or best dad. You want to be an entrepreneur, you want your brain to be operating at 1,000 miles an hour in order to keep up with the rest of the businesses, competitors. How do you actually scale your business? You're going to really, really need to work hard, not to just at the initial stage, but midterm as well, mid to long term. So people often misunderstand the entrepreneurial journey because they think it's freedom. It's just ultimate freedom. You're on your own boss and stuff. And I can tell you, running a number of companies and being self-employed for a really long time after Barclays Bank, selling commodities there, that it is anything but freedom, because you now have, say, if you have 20 employees, you have 20 families, 20 people and 20 families to also think about, whilst you have you, and then trying to scale, and then trying to basically satisfy your clients and everything else. So the pressure is tremendous, whether you are in entrepreneurial stage, working in a high pressure job, or being home mom or dad. So yeah, recovery is very crucial from that. Now, I think from a biological standpoint, when we are our teens and our 20s are very forgiving. So as we age and as we get into our 30s and onwards, some of the things that really start to take an impact is our hormonal balance. So that's why you see women in a certain age, they would suffer with menopause. Post 40 normally suffer with a problem called andropause, and that's like a menopause for men where they have a hormonal imbalance. Things like testosterone tends to decline, and then you have other factors. That's why you see people, they change shape. So they become a bit more fluffier when they are guys, become a bit more fluffier when they go from their 20s to their 30s, and then in their 40s. Obviously, you see the difference because as you're developing this hormonal imbalance, you're getting rid of your muscle and you're developing fat, which is also, yeah, okay, aesthetically it plays a part, but mobility really suffers in the long term because by the time you hit like 55, 60, you're also are now opening the door to a condition called sarcopenia, which is the depletion of type 1 and type 2 muscle fiber tissue. This has a massive impact on your mobility as you get older. One of the leading causes of death is a fall after the age of 65. Most people after the age of 65, most people, if they have a fall and they break a hip or any other joints, within a year they pass away. So it's shocking, and this is very scary. So therefore, people do need to have very heavy focus on recovery protocol. And it's quite phenomenal that when we actually sleep, there are two stages of sleep. So obviously the quality and the quantity. From the quality standpoint, there's something called anabolic window that we can benefit from, which normally happens between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. During this anabolic window, we have secretion of natural melatonin, serotonin, oxytocin, growth factors, testosterone, all the good juices. That's when you are producing. And what we're seeing in our society right now, with like 74% of the adults reporting poor sleep just in the UK, we are seeing most people are anywhere missing about 50 to 75%, up to 100% of this window every night, because most people don't go to bed by 12. Might be in bed, but they don't fall asleep because they're either hooked on their cell phones, their cortisol is through the roof, and so on and so forth, or they're out celebrating, whatever. So that's a massive factor, is that you need to, what you want to do is you want to get on the highest mountain that you can find to jump off your paraglider with when you're after the age of 30 and 32 and so on, because the higher the mountain is, and this mountain is a metaphoric term for, I would say, your systems, your supplementations, your habits. So you want to build that to be the biggest mountain, because then you decline to the end of your life, which is right now, 83 approximated life expectancy, give or take, is going to be much slower. It's not necessarily how long you're going to live. Naturally, pharmacology and pharmaceutical is helping people to live longer than before, but it's not necessarily making them live better. And that's where science and the peer-reviewed studies and meta-analysis comes into place. How do we actually have a really good life? Even if you're living till 80 or 75, how do you actually have amazing mobility so we're able to play with our grandchildren, we're able to go on holidays, we're able to lift our own bags and stuff like that. So that's the second part, that I think recovery really, really massively depend on your sleep quality. So if you're missing this window, you are literally kissing goodbye a lot of amazing natural recovery that your body regenerates and heals throughout the night. And then sleep quantity is another one. So sleep quantity, again, you're like, there's the hustle culture. We've had that in medical residency for a long time, and in investment banking. You have that in corporate law. That I'll sleep when I'm dead, or I'm sleep when I'm 60 or retired and stuff like that. All of those things, and a lot of social media influencers, they actually also have been promoting this for some time. Yeah, it sounds great, sounds sexy. It sounds like you're like some kind of stoic Spartan. But the fact of the matter is that you don't want to be dead when you're 60. You don't want to be like on one leg or going in for 10 surgeries when you're 60. The whole point is that how do you look to try to create a balance? Even if your life is very stressful, you're able to implement some of the systems, some of the supplements and rituals in place. So you're able to live a really good life until you basically hit the age of retirement and then past that point. So sleep hours.
I feel that people have missed the point totally. So just to reiterate, what you're saying essentially there is you build a healthy 70s in your 40s.
Yes.
But that doesn't seem, it's not a very popular thing to talk about. People are, I'm too busy grinding or striving. But you are absolutely right. All the data, especially around inflammatory diseases, heart health, high blood pressure, and dementia, cognitive decline, says this problem is created in your 40s, which is why it's so important to get ahead of this.
And 40s, I would say, because your body is still producing some of those amazing, like forgiving, factors and recovery factors in your 20s. And whatever you do, if you're drinking alcohol, if you're not hitting sleep, I mean, sleep quantity is what I was coming to. That a lot of people, they take a nightcap, they go out, they have a drink, it's a very known culture in the UK, especially to go for like a beer after you're like all the pubs are full and everything else. And I understand that there's a social element to it. But alcohol, number one, it destroys your testosterone. It builds a lot of fat. It destroys your gut microbiome, which is the next directly correlated to connected to your to your immune system. And it also sets you into pseudo sleep. So if you have a glass of wine every night or something like that, it will put you in pseudo sleep. So you'll get to sleep faster because you have now calmed down your central nervous system, but you're not going to maintain that because the quality of your sleep is going to be poor. And a good example of this is if you wear any wearables or anything like that, you'll be able to monitor this as after consuming a glass of like red wine or anything like that, your sleep quality scores are impacted. And yes, trackables are great, but for those people who don't have trackables, you can actually feel how your body reacts. So I would say 30s, 40s onwards is basically setting you up for how you're going to feel and also look in your 70s. But this is quite crucial because this hustle culture is promoting sleep 6 hours, or 5 hours. The optimal sleep, studies done by sleep expert Matthew Walker from Stanford, 25 years. He wrote a great book called Why We Sleep. And the optimal sleep for 99% of the humans is between 7 and 8 hours every night because you're hitting your REM sleep, you're hitting all the sleep cycles. Now, it might be seasonal as well. So sometimes, depending on the season, you may need 8.5 hours. Sometimes you may need 7 to 7 hours, but sub 7 hours sleep is not optimal. And if you think that you're an exception that gets away with it, you just watch your biomarkers as you age, and you will. I've seen so many examples of this, by the way. You can't negotiate with biology. You simply cannot argue with biology. This is one thing I've learned for years and years of studies that I've seen people who are like, yeah, but I'm different. I operate like, I operate on 5 hours just fine, or I operate on 3 hours just fine, and X, Y, and Z. And they're burning sick both ends. And lo and behold, and some of these were actually really good friends, they are literally breaking their bones as just simply going on a holiday on a ski trip. They're slipping at work, breaking their ribs. They look awful, sorry to say, because their sleep. Also, another thing, what it does is it not only balances your hormonal profile, which is incredibly crucial for your food distribution. This is one thing that I'm just so shocked to hear experts don't talk about this. Here's an interesting fact for your audience. The food that we eat is a choice made by us or our environment and stuff. The food distribution, the distribution of those calories has got nothing to do with our gut and our digestive system. That's just a processing, that's just a machine. The code, the master regulator is our hormones. So where that food goes is all up to your hormones. So insulin is going to break that down and distribute that food. And if I can just finish this thought, that this is this. So me and you, we go out, we have the same burger, same calories, same burger, exactly the same meal. If I have a hormonal imbalance for like a week running, where my hormones are imbalanced, insulin, you have glucagon, you have other leptin, ghrelin, which are not operating in the same fashion, and we have the same burger, and I have imbalance and you have balance, your most of those calories are going to go towards glycogen, which is the fueling of your body, which is what food is meant to be, and my calories are going to go towards fat storage because I have a distribution problem. So the master regulator is going to be impacted. That's why sleeping optimally is hugely critical for aesthetic appeal also, and long-term health.
Honestly, again, I can't agree with you more. I'm leaner now than I ever have been because I am fastidious about my sleep and my nutrition. And for anybody who is wearing a trackable, especially a Whoop, please dig into the data because, Sam, I see sleep disturbances on people's data, like not just 2 or 3 times a night, but 12, 15, 20 times a night. If you've got that level of sleep disturbance, the quality of your sleep, you'll see it in the data when you dig in. Don't believe red, green, yellow, whichever device you're using. Disturbed sleep is not quality sleep. And just to go back to something else you just said about 7 to 8 hours, that's 7 to 8 hours of sleep, not 7 to 8 hours of lying in bed. And they're two very different things, as you know. You don't go into bed, I mean, I do actually. As soon as I get into bed, I put my head on the pillow and I'm asleep, but I've been practicing sleep meditation for years. But people don't. So 7 to 8 hours, you do need to think about the pre and the post time around that as well. Sam, can you tell me about the product? Because it's amazing and I want everybody to try it.
Yeah, so we spent 2 years in formulation of Calm, which is our main leading product right now. We had 70 reiterations. It's a recovery formula. It's a powder. It's made with cacao powder, so it tastes phenomenal. It's got no bad bits to it. So although it looks naughty, it's not naughty at all. It's got no sugar, no gluten, no dairy. It's got no calories. It's phenomenal and it tastes great. So the reason why we needed to do over 2 years, why we ended up doing 70 reiterations, is because we wanted to make sure that it tastes phenomenal, which it does. The second challenge was, how do we make it hyper effective without putting any things like melatonin or other substances which can lead to grogginess or sedation? And we kept that out, working with a team of scientists. So it's hyper effective without any of those bad things. Then we also wanted to make sure that it is safe for compliance consumption. And we also wanted to make sure that's a pleasurable experience and the consistency is really good. So it's easy to mix, it's easy to take, and it's something that becomes like your ritual. Now, from formulation standpoint, it's loaded with marine collagen. So it's clinically formulated. So every single thing is in that one scoop, which is giving you optimal clinical dose. Which means that you may have some brands out there who are selling magnesium glycinate and X, Y, and Z, but this is formulated with the optimal clinical dosage, which means that every single thing is the most effective when it's formulated together. So you have magnesium glycinate, you have L-theanine, which is great for anxiety. You have reishi mushrooms, which makes it sustainable throughout the night. You have marine collagen, which is great for your skin, for your bones, for your joints, for your hair, for your nails. So you have marine collagen, highest quality. We import it from a bioprotected farm in New Zealand. So it's phenomenal. We want to make something that was absolutely phenomenal. It's manufactured in the UK, so it's not coming from places like China or Europe. Although the brands who are doing that, they each to their own, but it makes it a lot cheaper to do that, but you don't know what's actually in the product because the manufacturing is not taking place here in the UK, where we are in the factory every 2-3 days. So it's phenomenal. We've had phenomenal feedback so far. It's got things like chamomile, it's got passion flower, it's got ashwagandha. So again, the formulation is very powerful and it tastes great. And it's something that you can repeat and look forward to every night. it comes in a pouch of 30 days. Right now on this podcast, you also have a link to get discount code of 15%. But you have full money back guarantee because you can keep the product. We don't want it back. If you don't like it, just let us know. We'll give you the money back. That's how much we actually trust what's in it and how good this whole formulation is, and you'll be able to track it. You'll be able to track your own journey, and yeah, just basically looking forward to hearing that feedback from individuals as well who end up trying it. So the reason why we developed this, just so you know, is because, as I mentioned, that up to 74% of the people in the UK are reporting poor sleep, and that's a big number. And through my journey, so I had a medical practice here in London and Mayfair, and we were looking after patients who had issues and they were suffering with chronic illnesses like cancer, diabetes, neurodegenerative disease, which is Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, and so on. And number four is diabetes, more specifically diabetes type 2. And there was one underlying factor for every single one of these clients across thousands of patients, which was poor quality of sleep. Poor quality and poor quantity of sleep, which was accelerating the biggest killers on the planet. Because when you are not sleeping in an optimal way, when your quality and quantity of sleep is actually not optimal, you are destroying three main systems in your one of them I already mentioned, your hormonal system. So that's your master regulator. You also are destroying your immune system, and you're destroying your central nervous system, and these are all interconnected. When you're not, that's why, if I had somebody ask me that what's more detrimental, not sleeping, or having sugar, if you had to put your money on one. And my answer was very simple. I was like, look, why don't you do this? Why don't you consume sugar-based products one day and check your biomarkers, and then you basically skip on one night's sleep and see how you feel the next morning and check your biomarkers. You like sleep, you cannot operate without sleep. It's the bedrock of health and wellness and longevity. There is nothing that comes close to it. Not even water. You can do 2 days without water. You're not gonna feel great. You can do 2 days without food. You can do 2 days without everything else. But you try to do 2 days without sleep and see how you feel. That's why even in the Navy and all the rest of these amazing places, they have sleep torture is known as a form of torture. They keep you up for like 3, 4, 5 days, and you literally just collapse. So yeah, it's very powerful, and the data backs it massively. And we want to impact as many people as possible to have that restful night's sleep. Now, from a mechanistic standpoint, how it works, it lowers your cortisol. So one of the things that came out of peer-reviewed data and meta-analysis is most people are not falling asleep, or they are not hitting their sleep scores, is because the cortisol is too high. So cortisol normally gets a bad name to it. It's a hormone, and it's absolutely critical for us, but we need it first thing in the morning to get out of bed, to go and do things, and to hunt the animal and everything else, build businesses, be the parent that you need to be. But you don't need it at nighttime. But most people in today's society and culture, your cortisol is still spiking. It's very, very high, and because of that, you're impacting two things. You're impacting, number one, your central nervous system. So your nervous system is fired up. And then on top of that, you're not then able to sleep. Or if you're able to sleep, 2, 3 hours in, you're up again. Right. So what this does is formulated to bring down your cortisol levels. And number two, it's designed to bring down your central nervous system. So the firing of central nervous system is regulated. And with this, and then you have reishi mushrooms and other elements, which makes it sustainable throughout the night for that 8, 9 hours. You're able to have that sustainable, amazing sleep. So there's no like a spike and then a crash of the ingredients. It makes it sustainable throughout the night. So yeah, that's a little bit about the product itself and the mechanistic makeover of it.
I wanted to ask you, Sam, because I've been using it. In fact, our whole family's using it because it tastes great, which was a real surprise actually. And you don't mix it; you just mix it with water, which means that I'm not adding dairy or I'm not loading up with soy milk or other sort of artificial milks. The taste is amazing. I wanted to ask your thoughts on fasting. So a lot of my clients like to have a big window of not eating. So if you're finishing eating at maybe 5 or 6 o'clock, when would you so first of all, I like it in front of the television in a nice glass because it makes me feel like, oh, here's my nice chocolatey drink and I'm getting ready for bed, and that works for me, and then I might go and have a bath. But for other people, they want to close their eating window earlier. What would you do about that, or how does it affect people who are doing that sort of protocol?
Yeah, so fasting protocol is so fasting is it's basically you have like a 0 calories. If you look at the formulation from caloric standpoint, it's like hardly anything. I mean, if you were to take like half a lemon or quarter lemon and squeeze it into water, it's going to come to the similar amount, if not less, from caloric input standpoint. So it's very incredibly low on that, and it's consumable in a way of a drink, so it's very low. So I don't think you're going to have an insulin response in your fasting window. That said, it's very hard to tell each individual because some people are more insulin sensitive, some people are less. So what I would suggest on a blanket, on a mass scale, I would say that you're safe enough to consume it whilst you're fasting, but towards the start of your fasting window. But I would say it could, like, you just monitor. It's got no calories in it, so you're not actually, from caloric standpoint, you're not putting in something in your body which is putting you out of that autophagy window or that fasted window stage, because it's from the benefits of fasting is basically caloric intake and then the response on your insulin then subsequently.
That's quite interesting, actually, Sam, because I fit a lot of my clients, or they volunteer to put their own continuous glucose monitors on. And of course, it's so different for everybody. But next time I put one on, I'm going to test that. So if there are any listeners that have already used the product and they're using a continuous glucose monitor, we'd love to know if it's spiking or not. My feeling is it's not. There's 11 grams of protein, I think, in each scoop. So that won't be creating any kind of insulin response, I can imagine. That's an amazing piece of advice. Sam, can I also ask you, some days or some evenings when I've been out for a gigantic meal and I've eaten myself silly, I come home and think, oh my gosh, it's 10:30 at night. I cannot bear to have my product. Do you just neck it then, or what would you do in that? Because I feel like, oh, I should be taking it.
It just purely depends on how you feel. So listen to your body. If you feel like you're going to hit the bed and you don't need anything and you feel very calm and you've got enough energy being deployed to your stomach to break down all those extravagant calories, then you may be incredibly tired. But another thing is that when you're doing that, that's not a normal protocol, number one. So for anyone who's health conscious and stuff, they're not likely doing that on a daily basis. But we are humans, and it does happen. I wouldn't force myself because it's meant to be a pleasurable experience. But one thing I tend to take it about 30 to 60 minutes before bed, and the instructions on how to take it is literally a scoop in 320 or 350 mils of water, and just consuming it that way. So it's not heavy. It's not like it's not gonna like it's not off-putting even if you're full. I mean, we had it last night. We came back after like a heavy meal with steaks and stuff, so we didn't feel like we were consuming something which was like, quite heavy, which normal cacao based products can feel. So it was pretty good. But I would say because of the marine collagen built into your system. So I would say if it's best not to skip it if you can, because naturally, okay, so you might already be lethargic and sleepy because you've had this like amazing feast, but marine collagen is going to be still aiding you through that recovery process. So I would say if you're able to take it as frequently as possible.
I just think it's wonderful, and I'm a huge fan of collagen. I must just say, nails, skin, hair, it all benefits as well as sleep. So this is a multifaceted load of benefits. Sam, we're coming up to the end of the show, and I really want to ask you about the next product that's coming out as well, because this is also very exciting. Would you share with our listeners what's coming next in the range?
Yeah, so phase two is our product called Focus. And the rationale for developing Focus was a lot of people are currently hooked on to like 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee in the morning, or they're hooked on to um, like a cognitive enhancement supplements, and or the energy is not as great first thing in the morning. And then you have a secondary problem where people are taking loads of supplements, multivitamins, and people they are just confused as to what to take, what not to take. You have so many doctors who are saying drink coffee, it's amazing for you. Then you have a number of doctors who are saying coffee is absolutely horrible, don't touch it. So people are confused on the mass scale. So I think what we looked at again is what exists in the market space. So you have things like Red Bull that a lot of people consume, especially if they're in the high position roles and stuff, and Monster drinks and stuff like that. But it's loaded with garbage and it frankly tastes awful. So even Red Bull, the guy who owns Red Bull said that it tastes awful. But people like it, so why not? So what's actually interesting is we have taken all the amazing things and compiled this into one drink, which comes in a can form. It has all the multivitamins and minerals that you need. Again, it's loaded with marine collagen, loaded with vitamin C, zinc, and other things. So it's a formulation of, again, 14 ingredients. Phenomenal formulation. It's on our website for anyone to check. And it's, again, got no sugar. It's got taurine, it's got caffeine. So it's got everything scientifically formulated to make it that powerful drink, and then it's got lion's mane, so you get amazing benefits of things like taurine and caffeine and the rest of the minerals and collagen, but you have lion's mane to make it sustainable whilst giving you that really nice brain focus, cordyceps, so you feel great. And for that, the cherry on top is it tastes phenomenal. It's in a carbonated structure and it tastes absolutely phenomenal. So we've got a couple of different flavors coming out in that. So that will be phase two. We're currently in the R&D process. So in about 3 to 4 months times, hopefully that will hit the market as well. So super excited.
Oh, I'm so excited. That sounds absolutely fantastic. Sam, you've been an amazing guest today. I've learned so much and I've loved talking to you. I am a huge fan of the product. And if anybody's listening, please use the code that we're going to link down below for your discount. Please reach out to Sam and I if you've got any questions. I think we're both incredibly chatty and very happy to talk to anybody directly. If you are in the healthcare arena, please check out Remedy Health, which is a wonderful community. And Sam, anything else to add before we close the show today?
No, good. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to your listeners. Yeah, here to help, here to answer like any questions, and looking forward to getting some feedback.
Absolutely. And can I just remind all of you out there, sleep, 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 sleep. And if you are dabbling in Ozempic, please make sure you're taking enough protein, you crazy people, because otherwise you're going to be very poorly by the time you get to 75. It won't be a fun death. Until next time, take care, God bless, and go to bed early tonight.